Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 63. I'm Enigmius and today our ship is already upside down. The best way to start a new build is with an upside down ship. You can see we kind of did a little bit of profiling, just a little bit of skeleton work, laying out the general feel for certain aspects of the ship, and now we're going to start with the actual hull construction and work our way over and around and under the ship. As soon as we get the underside of the ship done, we're going to make sure we have enough equipment on it to flip it over, and we'll flip it over and we'll do the top side. I think that's the way that it'll work. Now we're doing a slightly different format this time around, based partially on viewer requests and also just because sometimes it's nice to do something a little bit different. We're doing a block by block build, but we can't just do straight recording and then uploading. It's too much. I don't think it's really the kind of video that I would want to watch, so we're not going to do that. We're going to speed it up a little bit. It's working at twice the normal speed so that you can still see what's happening, but the time between actions is a little bit shorter, so hopefully that makes it a little bit more watchable. I've also edited out all of the menus, so every time I open a menu to select a block, select a texture, or select a paint color, I remove that part from the video so that you don't have these little distractions popping up on the screen all the time, because even at twice the normal speed, you don't really get a chance to see what I'm doing when I'm selecting things from the menu. So those are gone. And hopefully, with those two sort of things in mind, it'll be useful. It'll be something that a person can watch and see how certain things come together in the build without feeling like it's just too much detail and dull crap. That's the idea. So leave the feedback. What you think of the speed, what you think of the absence of the menus, anything that you think is relevant to this format compared to some of the other things that we do, by all means, let me know. The goal of the area that I'm working on now is this spot between the thruster rings, which is will eventually be the underside of the ship, or the lower portion of the ship. And the whole idea here, it doesn't have to be functional. This is an area of the ship that you could just have blocks running straight across, make it flat if you wanted. In my case, I chose to do something a little bit more detailed, a little bit more involved, and this will be kind of the running theme throughout the build, is finding spaces where I can just focus on doing something interesting that if I had to do over the entire ship would just take way too long. But if we put them in selective areas on the ship as we're building it, it kind of fills it out, makes it look a little bit more interesting without having the build take weeks and possibly even months to complete. You can see now, nothing exceptionally complicated here. We've just used some 45 degree and 22.5 degree blocks to kind of build this little valley here between the thruster rings. And now we can just kind of build around and work our way towards the outer side of the ship. We're sort of down the middle on the underside of the ship, and now we want to work our way towards the exterior sides of the ship. One of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that we had enough thrusters on this ship. This is probably the only part of our last hover vessel that I wasn't happy with, was that it just didn't seem to have the horsepower necessary to get around as quickly as I would like. It had the firepower. It had enough maneuverability that we could stay out of trouble in most cases. We could get around on the planet. We just couldn't do anything quickly. It was slow to accelerate. And when you're talking about hover vessels, even when it's working well, you still end up slowing down and stopping a lot as you're traversing over rough terrain. So being able to get back up to speed relatively quickly is probably going to be a very important aspect of being able to label this one a successful build. The other thing that I wanted to be careful about is how the transitions work and how we set ourselves up to be able to add the important details later on. So for example, we've got this circle or pseudo circle, as close as you can get to a circle really, in a voxel environment like this one for the rear thrusters. And now it's got to transition somehow to the side of the ship, which is actually out a little bit away from those rings. And also is going to be a completely different shape. We're not doing a round sort of thing all the way around the ship, because it's just a bit too much with the way all the curves come together to do round this way and round that way and curved the other way. So the transition here is very important because it's not only going to determine how the back end of the ship looks from the thruster rings to the side of the ship, but also it's going to determine how much space we have to add thrusters, because we're kind of determining now where things are going to come together, where we're going to have flat sections that we can use. It'll make more sense as we get to that point. But the whole idea here is that this isn't really arbitrary. When we were putting that little detail in between the thruster rings, that was arbitrary because we didn't have to put anything else there. We could do whatever we wanted. We have to be a little bit more thoughtful when we're putting the side together so that we make sure that we have enough room. And the nice thing about it is, even if we overlook something or if we underestimate something, if it doesn't come together later the way that we thought it would, there's nothing saying we can't change it. We can make all the changes we need to in order to get things to work in a way that we're happy with. But if we can set ourselves up for success a little bit early on by anticipating a need, that makes it that much easier. So that's kind of what we're focusing on here with this transition. You can see it's not necessarily a lot of blocks being placed. It's a lot of placing a block and then selecting a different block and then placing that, and kind of working on one side and then transferring it over to the other side when we're happy with it. What really kind of astonished me is I spent quite a bit of time on this section of the ship, that detail between the rings and now this transition from the rings to the side. And then you step back after it's all done and you look at it and you realize just how small of a portion of the ship that really is. But you're happy with it, and that's kind of the key. This is how we get hours of entertainment out of games like this, is we spend a lot of time doing things that we enjoy doing, and the time just flies by. So the next episode, we're going to continue on. We're going to finish detailing this transition so that we can start to work on the sides of the ship. But before we really focus on the sides, as I mentioned previously, because the ship is upside down, I want to finish the underside of the ship. I want to get the hover engines and the boosters and the landing pads in place so we can flip the ship right side up, and then we can focus on the sides and the top and worry about those transitions all at the same time, and hopefully end up with something that resembles a Manta, because that's the early name that we're giving the ship. We might change it if it doesn't end up looking anything like a Manta. But by the time it's done, that's kind of the goal, is that I had this idea in my mind, and as I was looking at it in my mind, I said, hey, we could call that a Manta because it kind of looks like one. So that's what we're going with until we're proven wrong. So I'll let you watch the last couple of minutes of this, putting in these fine little details, getting the transition here mostly done. And like I say, next episode, we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to transition the bottom of the ship from the back to the front. We're going to put in a little bit more detailing. We're going to place some of the key elements that we need on the underside of the ship, and then we'll be ready to flip the ship over and start working on the sides and the top. So if you want to be notified about the next video, as always, you can subscribe to my channel. As always, if you have anything you want to say about the format, the layout, whatever of the video, leave in the comment section. If you want to follow me on social media to get updates about videos, information on how to do that is also in the comment or in the information section below the video. So thanks for watching, guys, and take care.